We are 25 days into the new year, and the opioid crisis continues to make an impact in East Tennessee. Here in Knox County, there have been 18 suspected overdose deaths in 2019. This according to the District Attorney General's office. There were 290 total in 2018. The opioid epidemic is costing the economy in Tennessee hundreds of millions of dollars every year in lost personal income. A new report from the University of Tennessee Boyd Center details the impact drug addiction is having on the labor market in our state. 10 News reporter Mark Salinger spoke with the authors of the report that has now made its way to the governor's desk. Mark.
Robin, if just a small percentage of people addicted to opioids in Tennessee got clean, the increased amount of labor force participation would lead to more than $800 million in personal income across the state.
We know about the lives lost and the families torn apart.
She's on my mind 24 hours a day.
Now we're learning just how big of an impact the opioid epidemic is having on the economy.
In addition to all these really serious adverse health outcomes, we're seeing that has direct negative effects on the economy as well.
A new report from UT economists estimates that if just 10% of people addicted to opioids got clean, it would increase the labor force in the state by about 1 percentage point. That would lead to an additional $825 million in personal income in Tennessee.
Prescription opioids can explain up to half of the overall decrease in labor force participation that we've seen since 2000.
Matt Harris and Larry Kessler are two of the authors of the study. It's already been used by former Governor Bill Haslam to help determine where to allocate money to help fight the epidemic. But the solution isn't as simple as just shutting off the taps to help people get clean.
If you simply restrict the supply of opioids, you're likely to turn high-functioning addicts into low-functioning addicts.
Employers have told us numerous times that opioid addiction, drug addiction of any kind, is a problem.
At the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, the school trains students to enter the workforce. Employers have told them they struggle to find candidates who can stay clean.
Employers are saying there's a drug problem, we can't find people that can pass a drug test.
Just another victim of the deadly war on drugs.
Addressing the opioid epidemic can and almost certainly will lead significant economic gains.
And former Governor Haslam used the report to help unveil his $30 million plan to address the opioid epidemic. That was released earlier this month and focuses on prevention, treatment, and law enforcement. Robin?
Mark, thank you very much. If you or someone you know is struggling with drug addiction, we do have resources online that can help. That includes the Tennessee Red Line, help from the state, and resources right here in Knoxville. All that right now at WBIR.com. Let's turn to your forecast.